Have you ever watched something that you thought had everything in it? You know, like stunning visuals, a lot of action scenes, epic moments, but somehow it just didn't work? Like something was missing and you just couldn't put your finger on it? Well, in storytelling, there's this element that often flies under the radar, and it's called environmental storytelling. Whether it be in books, movies, TV shows, or maybe in real life, it often sets a stage in ways that we barely even notice, but when it's missing, we always feel that there's something wrong. Funny thing is, it's not always well done. We tend to gloss over the backgrounds, like the random people in the scene or the buildings our characters pass by, but when those details are ignored, we are left with that feeling that something just didn't connect. A recent example, Rebel Moon. And hey, I know it's an easy target so I won't go too hard on it, but there's still a lot to learn here. For example, the movie follows Korra and their stay on a farming village on the moon called Veld. This movie does start strong, making an effort to give life to the village and showing us how Korra doesn't quite fit in. But once the Empire comes knocking and Korra sets off to recruit help, the environmental storytelling falls flat. It's like we're hopping between worlds without really understanding them. This lack of grounding left a lot of viewers struggling to feel invested, especially since the places they pass by have no real narrative significance to the plot. The characters they recruit seem to have pieces of these worlds woven into them, but the lack of context leaves us more confused than immersed. Now, when environmental storytelling is done right, it's magic. Arcane and Cyberpunk Edgerunners are perfect examples. Cyberpunk Edgerunners managed to flesh out its world in just 2 minutes, while Arcane took its time letting us sink in into the world's details. Both shows may take place in only 1 or 2 cities, but watching them feels like you're getting a glimpse into entire worlds. The 2-minute sequence where David Martinez, the protagonist of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, was walking through the city was environmental storytelling at its finest. Now, this is what it means to show and not tell. As soon as David steps out of his apartment, we're immediately greeted by homeless people spread across the hallway of a dilapidated building. They're either drunk, lying about doing nothing, or are suspiciously standing around. Trash fills the walkways and are actually blocking pathways from being used. Take note, this is just a housing complex where David lives in. Once he gets to the streets, he's immediately greeted by a woman pointing a gun at someone through a car. And the thing is, you don't really know if she's the one stealing the car or if she's a victim trying to protect herself. And you know what? That's mainly the point. All around them, you can see that people don't really care. They're all looking the other way, and it means that this is more likely a daily occurrence. He walks past some perverts and degenerates on his way to the train, which again, nobody pays any attention to. It's just another day for this part of Night City. It is in this train that we transition to a different kind of Night City. This part of Night City is where there are people who can afford the luxury of having good medical support, or what they call the trauma team. This is further highlighted by the billboard that they pass by, which is an ad for the primary healthcare or insurance plan of Night City. We then transition to David walking through the streets of this part of the city, which is noticeably cleaner. People are wearing suits as opposed to the old and tattered clothes that the people by David's apartment were wearing, and what's more is that there are police patrolling the area. Of course, we're then reminded that this is of course just an illusion and that danger is still imminent, made apparent by the blood spattered on the streets from a confrontation with a cyber psycho the night before. Still, as David goes on, we see so many things that are distracting people from what's really happening around them. For example, people are watching a holographic whale dancing in the air or have their phones out in front of their faces, while Lucy is doing her quote-unquote business just a few meters away from David. So in this 128-second clip, we get to see the disparity between the socioeconomic classes that populate Night City and how that informs their environment. The poor are pretty much left to their own devices, while the rich who can afford the trauma team, the police, the max stack teams are very well provided for and are shielded from the realities that surround them. Now, world building is hard, and to do what they did in just 2 minutes, now that's a feat in and of itself. And you know what? I think Studio Trigger knows that because they released that same 2-minute clip via the Cyberpunk YouTube channel and Netflix's YouTube channel. It's kind of like a humble brag moment, which they absolutely deserve. Now, a feat of equal significance is the god-tier environmental storytelling of Arcane's first 25 minutes. Now, don't let this fool you. I know that Cyberpunk Edgerunners only took 2 minutes to set Night City up, but for Arcane, they chose to take their time. You see, Cyberpunk is a series where they want to get into the action almost immediately. Arcane was more focused on the characters and their influence on the wider world. That kind of thing takes time to establish. Right from the beginning of Arcane, we immediately see Vi, Powder, and the gang. Now, the great thing in this first few minutes was the detail that they showed in the background. From the moment they began jumping off the rooftops to the moment that they reached Jace's apartment, everything was clean and in order. The rooftops are mostly covered in blue and gold, with ornate designs that didn't really go along with the tattered clothing of the gang. Right away, this just showed us that they were out of place. This is really the best case scenario of showing and not telling. They showed us information that we can use to come to the conclusion that these kids don't really belong here. Again, the main point of environmental storytelling here is how the setting informs us of these kinds of details. For example, they showed us how the gang interacts with Jace's stuff. It tells us that to them, this wasn't the norm. After the explosion caused by Powder, their little chase across the city of Piltover reinforced the image of a clean and organized city. People were wearing dresses and suits, the police had well-pressed uniforms, and again, the theme of blue and gold was all over the place. Now, as they reach the edge of the city, you'll notice the progressive decay of the streets they're passing through. There are less and less people, and you begin to notice empty carts and out-of-place tiles on the floor. We even get to see that the gang has reached the part of the city where more dangerous people hang out, hence the fight that they get into. But all of this is just a preparation for what's to come. As they board the lift to the Undercity, the contrast of the two cities are night and day, almost literally. And because they reinforce the qualities of Piltover as a setting, the stark contrast of the two cities brings about a kind of shock to the audience. Right away, the sun is blocked out and replaced with an insidious green miasma that covers the Undercity. The sturdy, well-built buildings from Piltover are now juxtaposed with rickety buildings that seem to be precariously built on top of each other. As the children walk through the city, the people in the background are wearing tattered and mismatched clothes just like them. The establishments they walk through are grimy brothels lined along makeshift carts, selling random items for a quick buck. All of this was just expertly crafted to play on our emotions. They wanted to show us the disparity between the haves and have-nots, and for all intents and purposes, they were telling a story through the setting. This is the beauty of environmental storytelling. With a simple stroll, you're completely immersed in the setting and you believe in the world right in front of you. Where Rebel Moon missed the mark, Cyberpunk Edgerunners and Arcane nailed it. They succeeded in drawing us into their worlds and into the struggles of their characters. And with that level of storytelling, you're hooked, even if it's just for 10 or 9 episodes. I'll be talking more about the world of Arcane in this video right here, so I hope I can see you there. Peace and have a great day.